Okay. It's easier. Hello. And good evening with the next KAOS talk in Museum Dr. Guislain. Zoals jullie horen, ja, probeer ik Engels te spreken vanavond, omdat onze gasten anderstalig zijn, Engelstalig, andere talen, hebben we gekozen om deze KAOS talk in het Engels te voeren. Welkom, ook aan de mensen rond de tafel. So everybody welcome, also to the public around the table. I'm very pleased that you joined us on this somehow sunny day in the museum Dr. Guislain in Gent, which is as usual our partner for the KAOS talks. And also this one is one of the KAOS talks in the series of the residencies we host with together with our workspace Brussels. So for those who don't know us, I'm Mike. I'm the coordinator of KAOS. KAOS is an arts organization which organizes art projects with artists with or without psychiatric vulnerability. And one of the things we do is to organize artists in residencies in psychiatry. So for now, we invited our two residents for the moment, Mattie Wang and Sophie de Serière, who are with us since the beginning of April. Yes, time flies. And they are staying in the Psychosociaal Centrum Sint Alexius in Elsene in Brussels. And they, on their turn, invited two other artists, which they will introduce themselves. For the people at home, there is a chat. You can leave messages there around, let's say, 9:15 or 9:10. We will have a Q&A here around the table, and then we will take the questions or the remarks from the chat also to the table. So enjoy the evening, and now let me give the word to Sophie and Mattie.
Thank you.
Yeah. So maybe we start first with a small introduction.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Just our names and.
Yeah. So my name is Sophie, and yeah, I'm one of the residents at KAOS at the moment.
I'm Mattie. I'm working together with Sophie. We're partners, collaborators, and also resident at the KAOS.
And I'm Juliette. I'm one of the people living in Brussels. And yeah, I'll talk later about my place. I'm Michko. I'm an artist, originally from Japan. I live in the Netherlands.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody for coming. Maybe we can start the slides. So Mattie and I will talk a bit about our creative practice together and also individually.
Okay.
So our original proposal for the residency at KAOS was centered around the idea of dwelling, and we kind of came upon the word dwelling when we encountered the work of an artist who worked mainly in the 70s called Charles Simmons, and he has a work called Dwellings, and you can see it behind me. He made very small clay sculptures, or I think it was usually of clay, but also small bricks that he would place in abandoned buildings around New York, and I think later also in other places. And so the sculptures are very, very small. They're almost invisible to the eye when you walk past. And he kind of wrote a theory around the dwelling as a place of residence, and we thought there's a very beautiful double meaning of dwelling, where it's to think about something, to ponder something, and then at the same time it means house or residence. So because we were going to be artists in residence, and also at the center, we thought to center our project around this idea, or at least that was the starting point. And yeah.
Yeah. Also, there was a reference from Charles Simmons about like a city of little people.
Yeah.
Right? There was I think the people he imagined living in these tiny houses were migrants, right?
Yeah.
Some migrants, and
Yeah.
they would travel from little city to little city, and that these sculptures would be, or these little cities would be built in places that were very, very hard to see, at least to adults. And
he mentioned that
Yeah.
mainly kids would actually notice the sculptures because it was either at their eye level or they would just have a kind of attention that adults didn't have. So he often found kids to be looking or discovering it. And we wanted to kind of take on this, the idea of what can we find or what can we see when we're placed somewhere or experiencing a place for a longer time. And yeah, to kind of start from very kind of smallness and a place of not necessarily invisibility, but noticing things that are not immediately visible to us.
I guess when we first applied for the residency, we also thought that the whole perspective of scale and time would be very, very different. We had already imagined that, and so that was really the first step in how we were thinking about the residency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in our first week, can go to the next slide. Our first week was the first week of April, and already the year before, when we were talking to Mike, we found out that in the Garden of Chaos, there's a huge magnolia tree, which I was very excited about, but worried that it wasn't going to bloom when we were there. But it was the first week of April, it bloomed, and that happened to be our first week there. So it was very special, and we decided to preserve the magnolias in the form of a syrup, which we actually brought for you all today to try. So I think I have another photo of, here we're preserving, you can see the petals.
Do you want me to get you the glasses?
What would be best?
Maybe the glasses.
Yeah.
So depending on which magnolia flower you get, because they can vary from light pink to purple, the taste changes, and you can see kind of it's quite a bright pink, this one. And it has a bit of a gingery and cardamom flavor. I actually brought some cups for us to share that I made.
You made the cups?
Yes.
Oh, God.
I made them a few years ago. I don't know if you can, I don't know if we can zoom in, but they have like little squiggly things inside. Yeah, maybe you can hold it. Okay. I mean,
for the people here, we tried to eat the leaves and we're still here, so it's safe to drink. I didn't know it either, so.
Maybe.
Yeah, from this?
Yeah.
Okay, then I can share.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You want
this is
more?
mine. No, this.
I can't wait to taste.
okay. I hope it's okay. What do you taste?
Oh, God, I love it.
Ah, yeah. Is this water already inside?
No,
Okay.
Oh, whoa. This is all the syrup?
there is a little bit of water in there.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to add more water,
That's
you
also
like
one.
it? Okay.
I'll take it. I have my own here.
So for the people at home, apparently it's very tasty. I just translate
Yeah.
because they can't hear you at home. So
It's like, yeah, it tastes so strange because at the end you get the taste like at the back of your palate or at the top of your palate. I think it's really lovely.
Ooh.
I don't know, the same.
As elderflower.
Yeah, the same.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's very subtle flavor. You can also eat the petals directly raw.
Really?
Yes, so next year when they bloom, actually magnolia is the first flower to bloom after the winter. So you can just grab it and just make sure nobody sprayed anything on it, and or you can wash it and try it.
I think I know what it reminds me of. It reminds me of orange blossom water. It's similar
Ooh.
in taste profile. Well, anyway, I'll let you.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was our the first day actually we did this, and I think it was for us just a way to connect to the space using something that was already there, which was the tree in this case, and yeah, we were also interested in not necessarily in food, but in recipes that were used at the center and also at the residency. So this was our kind of introduction to that. Maybe we can. Yeah.
So kind of with that in mind, we, what by that I mean, just noticing or using what was already in space or in the place as starting points. We spent maybe the first 10 days even just waiting and observing how people interact with the space, what things people leave behind, and how they pick up or place things. And so we started to collect images of them, and this is just an image of a very regular event that happens in the center, which is the coffee time, they call it, or the coffee time, which happens twice a day, and at 9 and at 4, and it's quite a big event at the center because coffee is given out, and often because the table is drenched with coffee afterwards, there will always be these wipes that are placed on it, and they always collect the stains of the coffee, as you can see. And we've been kind of trying to collect them also.
Yeah. We're basically collecting all the residual waste from the from during the residency and at the center. And I think this ties into both of our practices because I think we're both interested in. This is something else.
No, we can. Okay, it doesn't have to be so. Yeah, okay.
It's fine. You can click it on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a found object practice where we both take walks actually together, and we collect objects and make sculptures out of it. So we really wanted to also bring this to the residency. And we've also been collecting stories from conversations. So it's become a kind of residual diary. And for me, I wanted to also bring my ceramic practice in there, which is another slide. But another important moment every day at the center is the cigarette breaks. A lot of people smoke, a lot. And
Go to the slide.
yeah, you can go to the slide. Yeah. And we noticed that, so there's the staminé, which is the main kind of hangout area. It actually looks like this space a little bit. And then outside there's a smoking area where the residents go to smoke, and also the nurses all smoke together. And at first we didn't really go out there because we don't smoke, but then we noticed that a lot of people were talking there. So we were like, oh, maybe this is kind of a talking spot. So we started going out, and
just to add, it's also one of those places, I think, that often you see the nurses and the residents interacting in a way that they don't interact in the hospital per se, because it seems a little bit more level, I think, and you can't quite distinguish who's who usually in the smoking area, I think. Yeah, please.
So we spent more time there, and then I started noticing how much people were smoking. And because I have a practice of glazing my ceramics with ashes, but I had never done it with cigarette ashes, so I thought, okay, maybe I can collect the ashes of everybody who smokes in a jar, and then use it to glaze the ceramics we made together. So we decided to give a workshop and for people to make their own imaginary roof tiles, and then to use the cigarette smoke. And actually one of the people called it smoking sculptures, which I thought was very cute, to paint them. They're not finished yet. This is the work when we did the first workshop before the painting. That's one of the sculptures somebody made. And now I might have to go back. So this is, I will go into a bit, this is another project I did with a collective that I'm in called Something to Hold in the Let Go. And we did a workshop where we made a collective drawing and then burnt it together and used the ashes also to glaze ceramics. This is the end result. I don't know if you can read it, but the plate says "Mind the End." And the collective is really about decay and loss, and kind of how you can use transformative materials like rust, but also ashes, to make it into another form. I think what I love about ashes is that it's something before it becomes ash, and it has to go through a process to become something else. And also, it can be quite a heavy material because it's connected to burning and also death, but also it's very light. It's a very light substance, and it also kind of signifies that there's not really an end to any material. It always continues through its dispersal, and I think ash kind of signifies that. So I really enjoy working with it. And also, I like to collect it in like places like cigarette ashes, but I also collected it from pizza bakers in Brussels. Like I went to pizzerias and asked for their ashes to use it. So that's a bit about this. Should I go back
To the box?
Yeah, the box.
Yeah. We can briefly talk about the box. Yeah. So just running along, because we're working sometimes together and sometimes separate. We have slightly different approaches. For me personally, I don't speak French or Dutch, so that has been an issue with interacting with the residents at the center. So I've been trying to come up with ways to meet or to still interact with them without language. And so one of the things that I had been trying out was just putting these boxes with some questions on them. As you can see, this one asks, what is the time? And I would kind of place them in areas where people would sit and put some pencils and some writing and try to wait for a response. And so that's one kind of level. I have some of these responses here. As you can see, this is the card that I had put there. And I have a response here which says, time for a coffee and time to shut up. So I guess these questions are very much led by some of the things that have come, some of the themes that have come up for us since entering the residency. One of them is the perception of time, and so very curious about how people experience time there. But I can pass these around, and of course you can see it. Yeah. And then we have a little bit of time still, I think. This is just one of the drawings that one of the residents gave to us. So ever since being there, we've had a lot of interactions with people there, and so often we spend a lot of time just sitting and talking. And this we just thought it was nice to include. It says, yeah, life is what you make of it. So yeah, just some nice words. And I'll just go slightly into my a part of my work. So I think we don't have to spend too much. I have here with me what you see on screen is here. It's here in physical. It's just a parcel here. It's a work that I did in 2018. It's called Becoming Ted Green, and it starts from this parcel, which I have no idea what's inside the parcel. I haven't opened it ever since I got it, and I spent a year or so just following the entire life of this person that I didn't know, and of the contents in this parcel, which I also didn't know. And it really came from this idea of kind of like a black box, or something that you imagine and project all of your desires and narratives onto. And so I went very far with this parcel. I took it with me everywhere for a year, and I showed it to my friends, and I asked them what they thought was in it. I went around the whole world to look for Ted Green. Not this Ted Green, but every single Ted Green I could find. And I have a picture here of a Ted Green in Düsseldorf, which I found on I found him on LinkedIn. And he agreed. He was one of the few Ted Greens that agreed to even entertain the idea of me visiting. So I brought this parcel to him and filmed him and asked him what he thought about it. And he gave me some gifts to take home. So there are many stories like that. I'll just go through maybe some of the more fun ones. Here you can see that the parcel is on an X-ray table. So I did manage to get the parcel also X-rayed, which I have here. I still don't really know what's in it, but you can get a sense of it. I'll pass it on as well.
Okay.
So this was a very nice story, because it was because the center didn't allow me to X-ray things that were not bodies, not humans actually. So it took a lot of work to convince the radiologist to scan this parcel. So I think what maybe I was trying to get at with the last picture of Ted Green in Düsseldorf and of this was that this is a picture of just all of the documents that were built up over just this one work. And I think what was really central to this piece, and I think central to my practice, was this sense of letting others, or like having, or the social becoming the work. And so you just start from a point, and you just let the work lead itself on and continue, and you don't really know where it ends up or who's going to interact with it, but that really is the work. So
you also flew to the US.
Yes, also
to go to Ted Green Road,
yeah.
Which is
So there is a road in the United States called Ted Green Road, and I went to see that road and met my biological father along the way. Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, it's a whole other story. So here maybe I don't know if
Yeah.
is there a time still? Yeah, 5 minutes. Okay. So just very quickly, this is just another example of a work which I thought maybe could segue a little bit also into Juliet's. It's a project that I did, I think in 2017. It's called Turbulence, and it's a series of 14 flights, because what I understood at the time, I was very interested in migration or borders, and so I thought I knew that when you're past the airport check-in, and between that point and the point you check out, that in-between space is like international space. It has no country. So I thought it would be curious if I could stay in this so-called non-country or non-national space for as long as possible. So I just kept, every time I took a flight, the cheapest possible flight, and where it landed, I would take the next cheapest possible flight again and again and again, to just keep staying inside of the check-in, the airport check-ins, and that went on for, I think, 14 days, I think. Yeah. And so the documents, there's a film that's made about it, and there are just these air tickets that are shown together with them. Of course, it's a lot of it. I'm happy to elaborate when we have more time at the Q&A. But so this is also an example of kind of working with the circumstances. I had just moved to London at the time, and I didn't know what to make work out of. So just my immediate feelings about migrating. Yeah. And just quickly, maybe we can talk about one of our shared works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
the second work we did together. It was a durational work where we walked for about 4 weeks from one place to another, and it was initiated by Mattie because they had been invited to do another walk based on a previous walk that you did, which was from Berlin to Vienna. And this walk was along the border of Italy and Switzerland. And it was centered around a place called Monte Verita, which is it's a mountain actually, in Switzerland, where in the beginning of the 20th century, a lot of poets and dancers gathered, and also philosophers, and it was a very strange place. It was a little bit cult-like. And we were going to walk through this place and then continue for about I think 300 to 400 kilometers. And maybe you want to. Yeah, and along the way, how we decided the route from one point to the other was very straightforward somehow, because we had the person at the end. We had mentioned to him that we would like to walk towards him. And he said, oh, maybe I think you should go this way. And he just took a map and drew with a marker, like a line like this. And we just followed that line across the mountains. And so along the way, we were collecting many different kinds of objects and wrote letters to him. And so we brought some of the letters here. Also, we would be happy to show. Yeah, we can also pass them around. I mean, maybe we can hold it up to the zoom in. Yeah. So we wrote a lot of letters to this person who had organized the exhibition, and we had never met them, so it was kind of funny, like telling all the stories about what happened. This is a story where we didn't have a place to sleep yet, and then a grandma let us sleep in her garden, which was very sweet. And another story is that a fox came into our tent and stole my shoes, which I thought was a wolf, but it was a fox. Yeah, we can pass them on. Yeah, so actually we both have a walking practice, but Mattie has walked longer distances before, and this was my first time doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe from here we can.
Yeah, we can pass it on to Juliet. Yeah. I think.
Yeah.
I don't. So. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much for that.
You're
That's
welcome.
lovely. All right. So, do I just click?
I think they're getting it up.
Maybe later.
Yeah. Okay.
You might have to be a bit
Microphone.
closer.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Here we go. So I'm going to talk about one of the biggest projects that I did, let's say in my early 20s. And then from that, I'll get on to what I'm working on more these days. And so that was my research around the highway that runs from Tripoli to Beirut in Lebanon, which is my home country. I come from Lebanon. And I absolutely love this highway because it runs along the coast and it goes through very different landscapes. It always gave me like respite from, frantic daily life. And until today, I'm very startled by the beauty of that journey. But I studied it with the mindset of university, which was find a problem, try to solve a problem in order to then make a project. Now, thankfully, I graduated, so I no longer have to do creative stuff in this framework. But I am very much marked by the research that I did around what it means to, like, the sense of the quotidian and the banal and the very ordinary and daily in relation to space and how we exist in space. Because I felt like, that the self could just be without any additives in those contexts. I did a big mapping project around that, and you're seeing scraps and drafts because I lost the drive where there was that big 9-meter map. But it's okay because there's been a turn, and that turn has been from bird's eye view, which is the map view, to very much the foot view. So what we see from the ground, what I see while I'm walking. So I in that turn, I was already learning a lot about plants in Belgium because I was already in Belgium at that point. And I was also taking some workshops around earth pigments and how to make your own stuff, and it was all very much fun. Making pigments was definitely a lesson for me because it requires noticing, which is going around and walking and seeing which little rock can actually turn into a nice color. So there's that noticing, and then the collecting, and then the very long and patient transformation of a rock into something which is, color. Now, I did do that in the beginning mostly for an output because I was still into maybe I'll make some visual art and I like that stuff. And so I did a bit of that, but I must say these days what brings me the most joy and what feels the most aligned to me is just to do the thing for the sake of this thing. So I collect rocks because they make nice pigments, and it's okay if I don't make grandiose visual work with that. It's just, it is what it is. And so in parallel to that, I was learning a lot about wild edible foods. And that, too, is very much an act of noticing the very small stuff. what's lovely is that wild edible plants are everywhere, and the more you learn, the more you see them. And it's nice because it's a daily enchanting thing. So while coming here, I took the train from Brussels, and on the path of the train, I could see from afar stuff, and I could just recognize them because it's been a couple of years that I'm training my eye for that. So this magic and this sensitivity is also lovely when it's combined with the fact that this is free food and that it's accessible. That you can go out on a walk and come back and you already have something to eat back home. It's also very pretty. This is a small bouquet of ground ivy that I made last week. Ground ivy is from the mint family. So it has this aromatic taste, but it's also very beautiful and it helps with coughs when they're not too severe. So as a home remedy thing. And of course, what's even lovelier about all this stuff is that because we're not so used to it, often we cook and we prepare them together in collectivity. Here it was at a workshop where we were all learning about wild edible plants. And then we made the best salad ever out of that. I think we had like 20 plants in this little bowl. And so this is, I've already said a couple of stuff, but can you recognize the flowers which are here? Yeah? Yes, dandelion, absolutely. And what else? Yeah, fantastic. So that's daisies in English. I'll talk a bit more about it later. Do you know what to do with dandelion? Yeah, that's when it sets a seed, it's true. You make a wish, but you can also eat the flower. And what we did is, well, honestly, this takes a bit of patience, and I'm not very patient, so I haven't done it this year, but 2 years ago I did. I went with someone and we picked a lot of dandelions, and then we made jelly out of it. And they call it, I learned recently in French, they call it cramaillotte, I think. And that's a bit like honey, because it's the first it's one of the first flowers of spring. It's one of the first flowers that the bees go and pollinate. And it's lovely, it's delicious, and it's so yellow. It's like it's screaming, spring is here, right? This is the tree that I noticed while on the train to here. Does anyone recognize it? Wild guess. It's very common in Belgium, extremely common.
Oh no.
No, but I see why you'd think that. It's in full bloom.
Apple tree?
Okay. Someone else? No, it's not linden. Okay. That's a hawthorn. In Dutch, it's meidoorn. In French, it's aubépine. In Arabic, I don't know. I knew, but I forgot. It has a beautiful blossom. And I can see why you'd think it's the cherry or the apple tree. The blossoms look very similar. But this one stays much smaller generally. However, the uses are different. This one is traditionally used for the heart. So whether that's sadness or to regulate blood flow around the heart. I believe it's also one of the few plants that was studied by contemporary modern medicine and which is proven to actually help with regulating the blood circulation around the heart space. Now, it has quite a stench, so you kind of smell it. And I used to hate that. I got a bit used to it, but not enough to like drink whole infusions of it, which a lot of people do. Apparently not everyone is sensitive to the smell. But so that's when the creative strand comes in. I love to mix it in blends with other herbs. And then all the herbs kind of, balance each other out in order to do whatever I thought the blend might be nice for. So the first one to the left is a blend I made for my cousin when she was 50 years old, when she reached 50 years of age. And it was more a femininity blend because she was very sensitive to that. So I put all sorts of very soft energy flowers in there. The second two are blends I did for grief, when I was grieving something in the middle and when a friend of mine was grieving something to the left. They're never exactly the same, those blends. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I really see my practice as a creative practice. Like you could say, yeah, I'm picking plants and doing whatever with them, but it's really guided by the just being there. And it just, I have those few plants that I have a good relationship with, and then sometimes I blend them, and sometimes it's beautiful, and then I offer that to someone, and it travels in this sense. Mm. The amazing thing about that flower is that it makes berries in the autumn, and you pick those berries. They taste a tiny bit like apple, so again, we're not so far. And you can make amazing ketchup from it, like the best ketchup of your life. You can testify, it's very good ketchup. So it's just all those fun things, and they're very, well, you do need to be in land for that, but it is accessible, like it's out there. Again, this is an extremely banal, ordinary view in the city. It's not far from my house in Brussels. And what are we seeing here? Daisies, absolutely. So I picked quite a few because daisies are not only edible, they're also fantastic for the skin. And so I dried them, put them in a bowl, or in a pot with olive oil, and then they infuse, and then I can make, well, then you get an infused oil out of that. And so it's all these little stuff. I've really learned that over the year. I wouldn't even say it was from one source or one whatever. A lot from Instagram, a lot from, a few books that I bought, some workshops, not so many. But it's nice to see that this was a small effort weaved into daily life, nothing big or grandiose or, in your face kind of. Just collected every day, exactly like the plants themselves. So all this good stuff is small stuff. And that's really important for me, that the good stuff doesn't have to be huge. This small stuff it's every day. And every day you have some joy coming in. So it was important for me to share that through a series of workshops with other people who would also be sensitive to the topics that I'm talking about today. Whether that's food or beauty or, like wild plants, soft medicine, let's say. I organized the first workshop a couple of months ago. And it was also about, so from those infused oils, we can make something, and then every participant was able to craft that. And it was really like simple beauty skills. Like no need to buy fancy brands which cost you a fortune. This was a lot more basic, very quote-unquote natural, very unlikely to cause allergies, and just such a fun process. This is a couple of pictures from that workshop. I think it was a very messy workshop, but what I'm sure of is that people had a lot of fun because they could pick from the different oils and make their own blends. And it was really fun. And that project is called Chatsy Chair, if anyone's interested in finding it later. And it's really built on the premise that we all know something about the plant world. No matter how small, we all know at least something. And so if we sit together and discuss that for once, instead of, you know, either being like, oh, I'm not an expert or whatever, then maybe we can amplify that knowledge and anchor it further in our daily lives. I'm ending with a photo of myself with a huge salad. I didn't pick it. I found it in the market. And it wasn't free food, but similar to free food, it gave me that joy of, like, I call it my hunter-gatherer joy, more my gatherer joy, where I just like, I found something, it's so nice. And we ate that with my friends last month.
I love that photo.
Thank you. I also love it. My friend took it because she was overjoyed as well. Like, oh my God, I've never seen a salad so big. What the hell? Maybe that salad was not organic, but anyway. So over time, I'm really learning to shed that belief that there must be a goal to my creative practice. Like, the practice is the practice. What I'm doing is fun. The joy is the joy, and the sharing is the sharing as well, even without like an end goal in mind. And with that, I'm ending with a small comic I drew last winter. Yeah, I don't know if you call it comic design. And it's a comic about, well, I mean, how often do you think you see yellow cars in real life? Often, not so often, rarely.
Rarely.
Yeah.
Never, maybe.
Yeah, so you notice them. See, when you like them, you notice them. Yeah. I used to think I never saw them, and then I heard like someone talking and saying that joyful moments are just like yellow cars. You think they're never there until you start looking, and then you start seeing them everywhere. And so, with that spirit, I drew that comic. Yeah, it's here as well. If you can pass it around, I'll show it to the camera. Yeah, and so the more you notice, the more you see, and that's similar with a lot of beautiful daily enchanting things and non-things, with their joy and beauty and, yeah, everything that tenders the heart. I am done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we're
That
gonna
was
go
really lovely.
looking for yellow cars.
Yes.
Now you're gonna start seeing yellow cars everywhere.
And flowers.
And flowers.
And also towards...
Ah, yes, the tea.
Ah, yeah.
Absolutely. So I brought 3 of my blends, and we put them here, but I forgot in which order.
I think you put the...
Morning one here.
No. Oh. I thought it was the lymph.
I will smell.
That one was in there.
That one was in
Yeah.
there. Yeah, that's what I thought. Let's see. Yeah, no. Okay. So this is all with foraged plants. So we're getting the work of my soul. This one is what I drink in the morning because I stopped drinking coffee. And now all the internet knows because it's recorded. It has a bit of rose and another couple of tangy leaves to wake up the system. It's just a bit energizing, but it's not going to keep you up at night. And this one is with a few lymph-draining plants, if you have a stuffy nose, which is my case. And we put that in there. So, yeah, maybe I can serve, or who would like which, actually?
Maybe in the meantime, Nishiko can start to explain a bit what you're doing, because
About my work.
still have one person left on our table here who didn't got some introduction, and time is moving fast. So if we want some small discussion between you guys,
I will be.
we should combine things. So
Okay, so I also like to walk around and then react to events that I encounter in daily life, and things I work with usually is like the events that unexpectedly happened, or like accidents, or something that you cannot control. I also like small things. So when I encounter those kind of events or moments, I try to interact with it, and I really like doing it because I think it's very, precious moments, because that's the moment your life becomes rich and also very original, and you have to make choice how to react on it. So it's also, for me, it's like a bit like exercise, to be better also. And I try to conserve the story behind it, also the findings. So I end up often framing things, just as to protect things I find. Yeah. So I have few samples. Yeah. So this is an old work I did when I was in academy in The Hague. So there was about the accident that I had in a restaurant, in a kitchen, and I got an oil, and then I got a burning accident. And that's what I did, was to wait for 4 months or so until the scar healed a little bit, and then went to the tattoo shop and asked them to frame it. So, just literally framing it, so you can kind of keep it, it becomes memorable, something precious. And what I like about this work is when I show it to other people talk about their own accidents, like burning accident or different type of accidents, or old scars. And so it opens up to the conversations. We can kind of appreciate it together. So it's a really nice moment. Another accident, maybe you see on the left above, that was the filling falling out from my tooth one day. And I kept the filling, and I was looking at it for a long time, and somehow I saw park in it. So there's a lower part that I imagine there will be water, and we can put the bridge in between, and the higher place is the tree, the green. So I just made a model of the park that I imagined, and it's called Filling Park. And I'm dreaming that it will be realized in real one day. So if I keep on talking about it, there is a hope that it will happen. So yeah. So, and this will be the last work I'm going to talk about. This is called Repairing Earthquake Project. It is about the earthquake and then tsunami. It happened in 2011 in Japan. And I want to talk about this because this, I'm going to show this book later. This book connects me to Mattie and Sophie, and then Juliette and Mike. So it's quite nice that the book, I like making books, but it travels around and connect people. But this is really a large-scale project, so it's going to be too long. So I pre-recorded the video, or some pages of the book, so I can play, and then just talk briefly about. So it started in September 2011, about half a year after the tsunami, and I visited several tsunami hit areas, walked around, and then collect the objects that are destroyed by the tsunami. And I brought them to the temporary studio, and then there I tried to repair the objects. and this place was open to the public, so sometimes I got help from audience, sometimes from other artists around me. And this is from 2012. 1 year later, I visited the same tsunami hit areas and collect more objects, repair them. So this phone in the end started to rotate the dial. It was not rotating when I found them. This is a large plate of carp. And there is an image of the day I found the plate. These are the shards, and then it's quite magical. All the shards that I collected, they matched together, and only few parts were missing. The missing part is filled with plaster. Yeah. This is a large sink. This was the first object that I found. And then I saw the news that the tsunami debris was traveling to the other side of the Pacific Ocean. So I went to Canada to find these objects in 2018, so 7 years after the disaster. But there are still small shards, mostly plastic. So I went with the tweezers so I could collect them all. And then, of course, you cannot identify whether they came from Japan or not. Yeah, some of them it's possible, but most of them are not. So it's a mixture of the story about the tsunami, but also about the environmental issue. And since plastic is not made for repair, decided to sort it out according to the colors and then the size, shape. This is another series I did in 2018. This painting is based on an interview I did with residents in the tsunami hit areas back in Japan. The paintings is what the person misses the most after the tsunami. And the image on the left, it's related to the painting. The stones are also painted in the middle of the painting. Beneath the tree. The person who lived there, he said that these are the only object that remained in this house after the tsunami. So they decided to keep them, and then they moved them to the new house. Yeah. And then after the repair, I brought the object to the Netherlands and made a box after the repair is complete. And some of them found foster parents. So now this object found a new home in the Netherlands. And then they are waiting actually for the original owner to find them. So we have there's an agreement between me and then foster parents saying that if the original owner appear and then he or she requested to be returned, we have to do it. That's I think yeah, so I have some object, some object, so I can pass it around.
I would love to see.
Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
And is it not tempting to you to fix this and use it? It looks like a very good
but
knife.
this has the new foster parents. I have to return it.
Ah.
But I love to sharpen it so you can cut things again. And I brought this because I thought it's really interesting. These two shards, it looks they match, but they don't.
Yeah.
Still don't know what to do. It's quite interesting. You can try. Many people tried.
No.
Doesn't match, eh? So, I think,
Oh. Maybe it matches, but it's missing. A no, it doesn't match. No.
yeah.
Did you have to do a lot of? Yeah, I guess you did. A lot of mix and match between all the objects and the.
Not so much because of the patterns and colors. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, quite magical. Most of the shards I found, they match together. So
Wow.
it's not like all of a sudden you have one piece that doesn't match anywhere.
Yeah.
But this one, big part is missing.
I love it. And it's
Yeah.
very sensitive to have this.
Yeah. The real object is.
Also, the I don't know, like the broken ceramic, which is then fixed. I find it so
Nice
so
in a way.
delicate. The porcelain.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
But it's also quite nice to see the cracks after
Yeah.
repair. That's something that you can see
Mm.
after you repair things. And
Yeah.
you can follow how the blades break. You can kind of see the slow motion of the moment when the object was destroyed.
Yeah. Oh, so beautiful.
So maybe for the conversation between all of you, I'm gonna interfere anyway. I promise I wouldn't, but but I see one thing that comes back in everything you do somehow, and that is time. I think that's one of the first words that you guys said when you arrived in Elsene, and also what is part of your practice. I hear that with Juliette, like taking the time to look around and to discover things and to be open to actually see and look. And I do think, Nishiko, that you need some time to get everything together and to repair it, that it's a very patient practice also. So I do see connections there. But in very different approaches or not. I'm not sure. I don't know if somebody wants to react on the idea of time. Maybe also in this time where we live and where we are.
Yeah.
It's a big question.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe just as a small thing, it does feel like the sensitivity to time is also reactive to the times, as in what kind of practices really make sense now in terms of conservation or an environmental awareness or awareness of others. It does also feel like it connects to like this movement away from from just ourselves or individuals, you know, and towards a more kind of collective or an exchange or social kind of experience. And that seems, for me at least, the most immediate way of thinking about sharing time or using your work to offer a different relationship to time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, or what I was thinking about is extending whatever you're working with, like extending, I don't want to say it's life, but kind of extending the way it exists without having to keep it's the original form. Like, I think that's what's so beautiful about the broken objects, is that it's a kind of continuation, but it's obviously different, and it's not, it used to be in a different shape. And also with flowers and plants, like by drying them and preserving them, there's a kind of extension, which I think is very beautiful. And then even when it enters your body, it's effective to whatever it touches or feels. So it's, even when maybe you digest it, there's still a continuation. So I think I like seeing materials in that way, in that it just kind of keeps going. And then by working with it within your practice, you're giving it your touch, but by giving it your time, you're also extending its time. Something like this.
Yeah, as if it was like energy exchange happening over the course of that interaction. Yeah. But I like also, and like to come back to what you were saying, as a response to the times that we live in. So that's the most time we've ever set times in one single sitting. What was I saying?
The times.
The times. Yeah, like what I observe with my practice is that with some things you just need to do it a bit, but on a long stretch of time. And I find that this is not really like, maybe if you had told me 3 or 4 years ago when I started learning seriously about medicinal plants that it would take me this long, and I still probably am so far behind to start to get to know my way around, it would have probably demotivated me, because we really live in an era of do a quick training here and there, and then you become an expert of blah blah, and then your CV is this big, and so it's all in a sort of accumulation. And I think what we do is not accumulation, like in our practices. It is collecting, but it's because it has this slow pace and this conversation. Then it's lighter. At least I know with my plants, they're all used by the end of the season. So there's no. It's more a give and take of life. Once maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I was like, but wait, there's a lot of plants that are medicinal. And then someone tells me, and that used to be the person I used to work with, and they say, yeah, of course, otherwise they wouldn't still be around. And I don't know if that's true, but it is interesting to see that there's like a long history of co-evolution of all sorts of lives with each other. And us picking them is not necessarily like destroying their habitat or whatever. Sometimes it's encouraging them to travel around. But there's the other one here. That's my take on time.
Another thing that I noticed was the word, you mentioned it also in your last sentence, Juliette, but in a different way, but traveling. I hear it with your practices, the one together, the one separate, on the airports. I hear it with you kind of, traveling around, seeing things on the train. And then with Nijiko, it made you travel to Canada to pick up pieces from something that happened in Japan while you're in Holland. And you know. How how necessary is this traveling? I ask this question because where you are now in residency, it's I know you're sitting a lot in the same space, but is it also a way of sort of traveling in
Traveling without traveling.
Yeah, you understand what I mean? And I'm curious also, you know, with you how that yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think traveling inside your brain, imagination, comes before the actual travel. And for that, I think you need time and then also input. So you have to ferment your ideas. And then I think otherwise traveling doesn't make much sense. Probably. Does that make any sense? Yeah, you have to do a lot of preparation and yeah, so application. And so. But it's definitely worth traveling because when you move items, then the value of the item changes completely.
Yeah.
Really interesting. No? This object is so strong. Yeah, you cannot create this by yourself.
Yeah, I think in the residency, I've been thinking about this a lot because maybe beforehand or before we started, we thought that movement physically would be a big part of it, and that we would, not that it's not a part of it, but I think we had to go back to a kind of stillness. As you said, we're sitting in the same area a lot. And the first 3 weeks, I think I was just sitting on chairs, like for hours sometimes, and but it was definitely also a kind of movement practice in the sense that when you come into a space, and it also wouldn't feel how do I say this? The space didn't also invite a kind of quick movement. I remember the first week, so there's a ping pong table in the space, and one of the residents was like, "Do you want a ping pong?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's ping pong." And while I was doing very fast movement. It was such a strange mix of, I always feel like I was interrupting the space because usually it's quite a silent space, and of course there's talking, but I hadn't seen like very fast movement yet. So that was interesting. And I think we've been talking a lot about how people move within the space in terms of which areas they walk to, and like, for example, going to smoking. And we've kind of been trying to, just take notice about how actually each space requires a different stillness or movement. I don't know if that...
Or somehow every space in a kind of micro sense has a certain kind of demand for a particular like movement, and also maybe to add to what you said, that we were talking a lot about also place making as a practice, and that has to do with traveling so much, because it's also about finding the places for ourselves or the places for our practice, and also places that make us feel like we can be a part of or we can contribute to. It's a little bit kind of tangentially related, but Sophie and I were also thinking about rest very much in relation to, because when we think about movement, at least in terms of our movement, we have a certain mobility that is assumed I think. And when we were at the center, we noticed that like the amount of time that is seen to be resting in relation to moving is very, very different, because we would see residents who would sit for like an hour and then just do one action, like have a coffee and then just sit then for another hour. And that is just such a different kind of degree of rest and movement. But that of course doesn't mean that they're not doing anything. It just means that the scale of it, or the kind of the between or proportions of it are very different from what we're used to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the idea of rest also is very related to the sense of movement.
Yeah.
Or because at the beginning we tend to capture, or we tend to notice just when movement happens. Because like, oh, when do they get up, or when do they pick something up, when do they go to the toilet, and that is seen as like an exceptional event, right? But then actually, if you turn that the other way around, actually there were like gaps and gaps and gaps of time where they were just seated, and actually that's also enormously filled with movement, I think. Yeah.
I want to talk about, talking about traveling. I did travel today from the Netherlands. So
Yeah.
I brought the water, tap
Yeah.
water from the Netherlands. But I thought this has a special value in Belgium.
This is the tap water. Okay. Shall we do like comparative tasting?
Yeah, I thought it'd be...
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, this is, yeah. Okay.
Mm.
Since we're also talking about moving, do you want to move these cookies around so that everyone can help themselves? I hope there is enough.
Half of it.
Okay.
And you want to add something about the cookies, or they just cookies?
Just cookies.
So, yeah, no, they're not just cookies. I made them with, so I made vegetable milk at home, not vegetable, lait végétal, sorry, comment on dit? Hazelnut and almond milk at home. And then you get the residues. And with that, I made those cookies. And I also made them with cherries that I picked last year. And I made a jam out of those cherries, but I didn't put enough sugar, so it became alcohol. So I took that out and gave it as a gift for 2 friends who got married. So it was like a liqueur. But the actual cherries, they don't taste so alcoholic. So I made cookies, including them. And I think I also put a few seeds in there. I put a bit of nettle seeds, and that is foraged. Also gives you a bit of energy, I'm so sorry. And I forgot. Ah, yes, and seeds of wild roses, which are full of vitamin C. It's very good stuff for your body. So, voilà. Yeah, I'm glad. Thank you. They're slightly burnt, but it's only my 3rd batch in 1 week. So, yeah.
So, but regarding all your work, you're all artists and creative people. A lot of times we still think of an artist like, okay, you know, they make something, it's presented in a museum or in a gallery or a theater or whatever with the public. What I hear from you guys is that actually what you're doing all the time, your whole life or part of your life, is a big part your artistic practice.
Yeah.
How? Yeah. Isn't there a tension in that part?
I think for me, there stopped being a tension when I stopped trying to call it, like, is this art or is this not? Am I working on my creative practice right now or am I not? And oh my God, maybe I'm just turning into a housewife. And then it's like, wow, fuck, it's okay if I do. Like, it's also very creative, this whole thing of doing something with something. And then that's been kind of what I've been thinking of maybe the past year, or at least, a few months, which is some things are very craftsy and some things are very artsy. And that division is often gender-based, sometimes class-based. And there's all sorts of reasons to go against that. And so I definitely say, like, in my practice, the tension has resolved ever since I stopped trying to force some model around it. Then again, like, obviously I miss having more time and resources to make like creative, like visual arts stuff. But thankfully, like, I make cookies, and now you all remember my cookies, and maybe that's a more sensitive way to be in contact with each other than me, like, I don't know, painting a nice mountain, and then you're like, oh, that mountain, you know, so, yeah. There's something very rich, I think, to be found in the notion of living arts.
Yeah.
That's as far as I'm concerned.
I can add to that. Yes. I think actually another really interesting angle to that is the calling yourself an artist, or the social aspect actually of interacting under the name of art, because one aspect of, say, our residency was that we always introduced, or we were introduced by the staff or the nurses as the artist in residence. And that kind of highlights a very different approach, I think, that the residents see in us, you know, different from the nurses. And I think if we had been there and we had said, oh, we're just here, or something, maybe there would have been a very different interaction. But because I think a lot of the residents see us as the artist, then somehow they open up a very different element to us too. And I also noticed that, say, with like our walk together, and also like the other walk from Berlin to Vienna, it was because other people had said, "Oh, here is Matthew. They're an artist," and other people suddenly become slightly more receptive to a weirdness or like that they're expecting that you're going to do something strange or out of the norm. And they're more able to accept that that's the case somehow.
But also that something like walking can become art.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily about the strangeness, but also very mundane things. Like,
absolutely.
oh, this artist is walking from Berlin to Vienna, then just by kind of naming it as such. Or even, like when we were collecting the cigarette ashes, everybody got very excited and was like, this is now an art object where we have to put our cigarettes in instead of in the ashtray, and it's this kind of, it's really nice to see that other people respond to it in a just, I don't even think it's about calling yourself an artist or calling it art. It's more just, I'm doing something that's slightly different than when you just take a walk. Or maybe it's the same, and maybe the blurring is the important thing. But when you kind of highlight, oh, it's slightly different from when I would just put my cigarette out, then it kind of gets charged with an energy that I think is what keeps me wanting to do things like that. And for me, there's definitely a tension, because I don't feel like I always feel like I know what to do. Like, I have also long periods where I'm like, oh, nothing is really, I feel the pressure to make art or do my artistic practice, but I need something to like pull me there. And there are also long periods where I just live my life. And then I was also curious how that is for you both, like your process, and if you have a specific routine. I mean, of course, some artists have a kind of repetitive practice, and I don't know how that is for you, but I was curious.
Also, in that sense, like this noticing things in, like noticing the spark or the magic in something, you know, is that part of also a routine or a practice in itself? I think is that somewhat the same question? Similar question,
but better.
Yeah.
It's something something that I'm really interested in,
Yeah.
but it's not something that you can force yourself to do.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
It has to come by itself, and
Yeah.
you should be like prepared to find them. So yeah, and yeah, I don't know, this border between arts and life, it's completely blurred, but I really like that it's blurred, and it's nice. It should be like that to my opinion. I have, maybe I can show this one. I made this t-shirt really long time ago. Yeah, I think it's brilliant work. Because
Yeah.
Mm.
it's not hair. It's you should treat this visual t-shirts.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Ah, yeah. So you wear this with your friend and you walk down.
No, yeah, it happens. Like I heard from someone, someone was wearing one of them, and then this person met someone in the train saying that I have the other half.
Oh my God,
Really?
that's
So it's
great.
Wow.
you cannot,
I love that.
create, but you can prepare
Yeah.
for it also.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's what
I think the preparation idea is
And
really
also
nice. Like, how do you?
sensitive for it
Yeah, yeah. Mm.
would be my most creative part.
Yeah,
Yeah, not making itself.
yeah.
Yeah, because like in what I heard you talk about, there's this notion of like attention. There's a change in attention, and that's what's somehow makes us notice the value of certain things. Not that like, oh my God, I'm gonna focus so much on this biscuit, it's gonna become magic, but more like just seeing without judging, without expecting something to be what we think it should be, and then we let it kind of, we're open to trace its story, like the story of the cookies or the herbs or the t-shirts and that spark between two people. Yeah. What was your question?
Mm.
The routine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking, just to elaborate a little, or do you want
Yeah.
to?
You can elaborate. I have a lot of things to say, but you can elaborate.
I was just thinking, like me and Mattie were talking a lot about artists who, mainly in the 70s, who kind of used time as a limitation to their artworks. Like Lee Lozano was a performance artist in the 70s, and she kind of would make statements in her notebooks that she was going to do something for a specific amount of time. So, for example, one of her kind of famous exercises, if you can call them that, was to stop talking to women and see how she experienced this. So she would kind of implement a rule or like an idea in her life for a specific amount of time, and then write about it and kind of see how her life changed based on putting herself. Or she wore the same pair of clothing for a year, and I was really, like, I'm very drawn to this. Like, how can I come up with something that that I can do for a long amount of time and also have a kind of commitment to it, which I feel like is now lost. For me, at least, it's difficult to do because a lot of the artworks or what's expected is this kind of fast-paced thing, like you said. Like, it's very, oh, you do one gig or one thing here, and it doesn't allow for the time to do something very long, like a year long or 2 years long. And I think the residency was a bit of a start in that like, how, if we have 2 months to just be in the same space, what will come from that? But I was just wondering if you have, I mean, the gathering from you, it seems like it's a continuous practice, maybe without you putting a time limitation on it.
Yeah, it doesn't have a time, like foraging doesn't have a time limit. I hope I can do that forever. But it does have a pacing, and that's with the seasons. And that also means that, for example, I showed you the hawthorn, the maythorn, yeah, it's the same thing, tree, but I took a picture when it was still wet from the rain, and I didn't pick any that day, and probably I'm not going to pick any this week because it goes out of bloom as we speak. So it's, yeah, with foraging you have to be attuned to something which is not you. It's not like, I mean, I have to be attuned to, oh, the weather is nice, so I know that that's a good weather to pick X flower and the daisies and and then can I manage to go outside, because I don't have a garden, I don't own land, so I have to find a way to find that herb. Yeah, and this is paced by the seasons, and it used to give me a lot of anxiety to miss the season of one plant. But now because it's been a few years I do this, I realize the season comes back the year after. So there's also something very reassuring to notice the durational pacing of something. And the downside of that is the eco-anxiety and a lot of ecological grief around seasons no longer being, like some seasons maybe never come back anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes me think of this work by C.A. Comrade. I don't know if you know them. They're a poet who has a kind of environmental rituals where one of them is that they put on, they go to like a piece of forest and they put on sounds of extinct animals and then close their eyes and write based on kind of their feelings around, like hearing the sounds. I think there's a database of sounds of extinct animals, and yeah. But it's like, how can you still evoke things that are no longer there, or like an emotional response to things that are no longer there, yeah, without having like a memory of them, or, yeah. But maybe with plants it would be different.
Yeah, I don't talk to them yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Maybe I just make a little cut here because we are already over time.
really?
And I wanted to check if there's some questions or thoughts of the people around the table, and also for the people at home. They can drop it in the chat, and then I will give a voice to their words.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there is questions or thoughts or. Somebody want more tea or something to eat?
You made it?
Yeah.
Can I taste
Yeah, of course.
So we did discover some jam on the table now.
It just keeps coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's endless.
It's a feast.
But maybe while they are pouring out the jam, if there are no further questions, it's maybe a good time to close the evening.
Okay.
While we are tasting. So yeah, this brings us to the end of the talk around the table. I think it was a very calm and very interesting evening with very different and, on the other hand, comparable practices, I think. So for me, the only thing to say is to thank some people, like the people from Museum Dr. Guislain, to host us again and to be here. People from Workspace Brussels to put up these residencies in Brussels together. The guests here, Nishiko and Juliette, and Mattie and Sophie, and of course all the people at home also watching. The last thing I need to say is that in a month, the 22nd of June, that's on a Thursday again, at 8 o'clock. We have our last KAOS talk for now, and that will be with our next resident who starts the end of this month, Stéphane Roy. You will find information of that on our website, www.vzwkaos.be. Our newsletters, Instagram, Facebook, we're everywhere now. Just keep an eye open and you'll get the information. So be welcome here in the museum or at home. And for the rest, I wish you a very pleasant evening. And see you in a couple of weeks, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you.